Welcome back, every pony. When we last left off, Inverno was still questioning Twilight as to why he couldn't go outside and what the harm would be if he did go outside. And Twilight, of course, didn't have an answer for that. Given by today's title, some kind of opportunity is coming. An opportunity for what? I'm not sure. But it looks like we will all find out together. Please enjoy. Inverno in F minor. Written by Cracktinkwell. Chapter 23. Opportunity in AB major. As the evening went on, Key's signature was deep in thought as he sipped his tea.
Was I a little too hard on the little fellow?
He wondered.
I mean, sure, he may have received his cutie mark, and it did teach him a valuable lesson, but was I a little too cruel in doing that?
He shook his head.
No, come on now. You know that you've done much worse. Yeah, much worse.
Signature took another sip of his tea.
On the other hoof, you did do the same thing to your granddaughter. Well, not exactly in the same fashion, but perhaps I ought to repair the damage while I still can. But how?
It was then that the professor heard something from his window that startled him out of his thoughts. At first, he couldn't believe what he was hearing, so putting his tea down, Key went over to the window to investigate. There, on the edge of the Empire, the professor saw lights moving, then slowing down at the gates. It was a train, and a team of ponies that moved about like ants, laying out the line of tracks to the Empire's front door. Professor Key signature? He turned around to find Cadence knocking on the open door. May I come in?
You may, Your Highness.
As she entered, the elderly earth pony offered the princess some of his tea. I already had some, thank you, Cadence said. I'm here to ask you a few things.
Let me guess. About today's lesson.
Key guessed, and the pink alicorn nodded.
All right. What do you want to know?
I was told that you'd gotten him upset by tearing up his composition.
Yes, and?
Why did you do that?
Motivation.
The professor answered, picking up his tea.
At least, I've demonstrated to him that there's a constructive way he can use his anger without becoming a danger to any pony. It looks like that plan has worked beautifully.
But you do realize that was an awfully risky move, though, Cadence pointed out. As effective as it was, you have to be extra careful with him.
I know. You're not the first to say that on behalf of my students, you know. When it comes to certain music, playing with an emotion is almost always required. Sometimes a student won't understand their piece unless I invoked the emotion of that piece requires. Sometimes that requirement means that I have to force them. Now, I confess, manipulating their emotions to get that music just right is questionable, and I know what you're thinking.
Isn't that a bit extreme? Cadence questioned.
Some may view that, but as for me, it has always shown positive results, as well as to show my students how to be emotionally mature. That is what I'm doing with Inverno, you see. Although, sometimes I do tend to feel guilty about doing things like this.
How so?
Well,
Key trailed off. He refilled his cup before answering.
there are times that I look back and think if I've gone too far. As effective as it is, the last thing I want my students to view me as if I'm some sort of villain. This is why I need to meditate on how to make it up to the colt, so he doesn't think that all that music is all unfair play.
If it helps. Cadence began, nibbling on a crumpet. Inverno told me that Twilight had helped him repair those pages you've torn, much to his relief.
Thank you.
Professor Key nodded.
And just out of curiosity, is that the railroad coming to the Empire, Your Majesty?
Cadence craned her neck over to the window. Ah, right on time. She grinned. With any luck, my ponies will have access to all of Equestria by tomorrow, and Equestria will visit the Empire as well,
I'm sure they would.
he said, sipping his tea.
I wonder who else from the outside world would be bringing in first.
From what I've heard, Cadence began walking out of the suite. The Royal Philharmonic is expected to be here to perform a concert to welcome our ponies to the modern day.
Is that so?
By now, the gears in the elderly stallion's head were turning. Quite. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make it, but I'm sure it might be something you may look forward to.
Oh, I will, Your Majesty.
Even when Cadence bid him good night and closed the door, the professor's mind was at full speed. Now he had an idea how to make it up to the little unicorn. Inverno didn't see nor hear anything. As far as he could see, it was all a silent void. He tried calling out a while ago, but even he couldn't hear anything coming out of his mouth, even though he knew it moved. Suddenly he was blinded by a bright light. After blinking, he saw a spotlight on the piano, as if it were waiting for him. As he approached, he could make out vaguely from the darkness that he was on a wide stage with faceless ponies in the shadows. He had no idea what he was doing here. Was he supposed to play? Play what exactly? He didn't know. And Renault sat down at the bench before the black piano, took a breath, and decided that he should play out a favorite anthem. He put his hoof on a key and... nothing. The colt pressed the key again, but it was still quiet. Confused, he looked over into the inside of the instrument. The strings and hammers were still present, but the unicorn noticed that no matter how hard he pressed any of the keys, it refused to make a sound. "Any time now!" he heard some pony in the audience shout. Soon there was a murmur among the crowd, making Inverno even more uncomfortable. Sitting back down, he tried to play out the anthem he had in mind, but he still wasn't able to hear anything. "Later!" And by the looks of things, neither was the audience. He tried pounding at the keyboard as hard as he could, but even then, the piano refused to sing. Inverno panicked as his audience got restless. He didn't know what to do. Even trying to talk to them didn't work because he couldn't make a sound either. What was going on? Why couldn't he hear anything other than the audience's disapproval? Then the ground began to quake. Everything around him was moving back and forth.
Inverno?
A voice called out.
Hey, Inverno, wake up.
Inverno awoke, finding the professor was shaking him in his bed.
Huh, what?
In Inverno's confusion, his mind was trying to make out what was going on.
Well, good morning to you too.
The elder stallion said, pulling the blankets off him.
Come on, put these on.
He threw some clothes and a pair of sunglasses onto the colt's bed.
We're going on a field trip today.
What's going on?
Inverno asked, wiping his eyes.
What time is it?
Pretty early in the morning, but we'll need it because I have a special plan for today. Inverno, how would you like it if we stepped outside for a bit?
Outside of where?
Why, at the palace, of course.
That got Inverno's attention.
What? But I'm not allowed.
I know that,
His teacher interrupted.
but after what I put you through the other day, I felt that I wanted to make it up to you. So, how about we get you in disguise and sneak around the Empire for a bit?
Inverno stared at the professor.
But what if we get caught?
Then we'll get caught.
He answered.
Besides, you do want to see what the world is like out there, right?
The young unicorn nodded.
Shall we take a look?
And this concludes chapter 23 to Inverno in F minor, written by Craig Dinkwell. Well, every pony, this is an opportunity indeed. The chance to go outside and explore the Crystal Empire. This is all Inverno has wanted for quite some time. But of course, there could be several repercussions if he is caught. Yes, the professor's idea of having him wear a disguise is good, But still, this could cause a bit of a problem, seeing as the professor has no permission to do this at all. I wonder if this will be good, or if it could turn disastrous. Anyway, every pony, the next several chapters are in, I believe, German, and I will not be saying them in German. I will be saying them in English for my own sake. I really don't want to mess them up. So until then, please stay in your seats. There's still a long journey ahead.